Hey everyone, today our interview is with Pegi Burdick, the financial whisperer. We will have Pegi on as a static picture today. Pegi is actually going through chemotherapy and preferred not to be on video. We do get into that in our interview. This is a really good one. Again, she's the financial whisperer. And I just wanted to give you a heads up that the video is just my beautiful face this time. Thank you. Enjoy the show.
Be the change you want to see. Make a difference by giving your money a purpose, a mission to do good. Welcome to Money with Mission, where we show you how to create passive income so that you have options for how to work and how to live your life while leaving a legacy of positive social impact.
Hello, everyone. Today I have with me Pegi Burdick. Pegi is going to introduce herself, but I'm going to tell you she wrote this amazing book called It's Never About the Money, Even When It Is. So I think that's enough to keep you in to know what the heck is Pegi talking about. Pegi, welcome so much to the show.
Thank
And
you.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, well, Felicia, fortunately, you're looking forward to it, but so often in the history of my being called the financial whisperer, I'd meet people at cocktail parties and they say, oh, what do you do? And I go, well, and I start explaining it. And the next thing I hear is, excuse me 1 second, I wanted to get some more wine. I'll be right back. And they never come back because women would rather talk about their shoes than their money.
I so agree with you. Talking about money people will talk about sex and their body parts before they'll talk about money,
Oh, it's so
which
true.
is so interesting to me. And I'm out to change that because if we don't talk about it, we can't fix that in our lives. And you're helping women to see how our emotions are tied to our money, which I think we intrinsically get, but don't talk about that either. So we're going to talk about it.
Good. Because
Tell me.
if you hold on 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Here's one of my expressions. If you don't have the truth, you don't have control.
I 100%. Can we
Yeah.
make that a tweet? If you don't have the truth, you don't have control.
Actually, it was better written. Hold on 1 second. It was better written. Did I say, if you don't have the answer? Let me go looking through this.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second. Here we go. If you don't have the answer, you don't have control. That's a good one.
Yeah. And if you don't know the right question, you can't get the answer, so you can't have control.
Yeah. And then what
There's
happens,
so much to
right?
that. Go
There's
ahead.
so many shades of gray that come into it because it has to do with your feelings. Your feelings are like cells, these really fine tissue cells we have going on, which is how are our feelings. So it gets really complicated because then you have shame, you have guilt, you have all this other stuff that comes into play, and and it all affects your money. It all comes back to Rome. So there you go.
Is it true that, well, I've heard that we in the United States anyway have very few, we don't really know how to describe our emotions very well. And I know I'm guilty of that. I think everything is, I got frustration, I've got annoyance, I've got tired, which I don't know is really an emotion. I know the word guilt, but I don't know
Hold
what
on a
guilt
second.
feels like.
Hold on. We have to have some ground rules. Hello. This is what happens. When people start talking, as you just did, and you hit upon a gem, I need to respond because I'm stuck there now. You're continuing to talk and you don't realize what you've just said. It's like throwing something at the dark.
Yeah, no, go back.
Okay.
Take it.
Here's what you said. You said, I'm tired. I think you said, I'm tired, but I don't know if it's tied to my feelings. Here's what happens. When we're tired, our resistance starts to go down. All these other emotions start to pile on and start to kind of melt away. And we're left very often with feeling guilty, feeling responsible, when it may not be the case at all, but that's where we're stuck. So it's important that we had accurate words to describe how we feel. And it's always one word. If you can get to that one word, you win, you own it.
Okay. And so I assume you get to that one word through talking, therapy. How do you get to that word? Can you do it on your own?
You may be too young to remember the game Password.
I do remember that.
Okay. So Betty White, his name was Ludden. His kids went to school with me, or I went to school with them. But anyway, that's what it's like. The game you play with your feelings is Password. Is it this? No. Is it that? No. Is it this? No. Is it that? Yes, it's exactly that. It's learning to articulate and accurately describe what the feeling is. Because if you don't, again, if you don't know what it is, it's still going to control you. If you do know what it is, there's an answer to the problem.
So I'm going to do two things. One, describe Password for those people too young to know it. Password was a game on TV where you'd have the person giving the clues would know the word. It's a word, and they have to give a clue to their partner to get that partner to say the word. Okay, that's Password. So are you saying then that not knowing the name of your emotion is a problem?
Yes.
Okay. So if you misname your emotion, I'm assuming you're still having a problem.
Exactly. Because some people get close to it, but it's not accurate. It's not 100% accurate. And that's the only way that you can start to heal it is by having the language. Because in our sessions, I give homework assignments out to my clients, and for them to be successful with it, meaning they're learning from it and changing, they have to have the right word.
Pegi, I'm going to go back a little bit. Can you tell us about you and how you got to writing about emotions, money? How'd you get to write this book?
Well, let's see. I was at my own financial cliff, and really, and I think it's the same for everybody. People live in denial. It's convenient. You get into a lot of debt. You don't want to face the reality of what it's really about. And I had been in therapy, so I really was very articulate. But boy, I was missing this stuff, and it just all came together because the universe finally said, "Enough." You're in your 50s. You've got all this debt. You got a marriage that's falling apart. You have a dog that's dying. You're rented an expensive beach house, which you can't afford. You can't afford this. You can't afford that. Can't afford the Mercedes. And what are you doing about it? Nothing. So I got perched on this financial cliff, and there's only one way to go. You have to turn around, take a deep breath, and seek help. So for me, I think I was 58 when it happened. So it was not an accident that Susie Orman had just come out with her book of Women on Money.
Uh-huh.
And then I think about another book I was reading, and I decided, and I had really have very lovely friends, and I finally started talking about the shame I felt, the embarrassment I felt, the need I had to pay for everybody we would go out. All this expansive lifestyle I led was a sham. So to finally be able to take responsibility for that and to say, yes, this is me, great. Now we can work on healing. But unless you have that recognition, you're stuck with that thing. It's like a barnacle.
How did you learn the words for the emotion, or what particular emotion that you were feeling was? How did you learn to get to that?
That's a good question. I've never really thought about it, except the fact that I have this uncanny ability to feel what someone else is talking about. So my sense of empathy is very high,
Mhm.
and I can identify the emotion faster than they can. So I'm saying, not that I'm a wizard, but I'm just intuitive about so many things that go on with people that it was just really easy to say, oh, it's this. And then I think one of the first times we talked, I brought something up to you, and you're like, oh God, how'd you get that? So that's how it started, because the truth of the matter is, Felicia, it belongs to me. I just couldn't reach it. Everyone has what belongs to them, whether or not they have the power or the guts or the fearlessness, whatever, to go out and get it. Because that's what you're doing now with your program for women. You see a problem, you want to solve it.
Mhm.
Because in part, it's a reflection of you. Right?
The problem that I'm looking to solve is a reflection of me?
Yeah, it's a piece of who you are.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
when you can relate to it, you can feel it. If you can
Yes.
feel it, you can do it. That's why it really
Mhm.
gets on my nerves when people go, oh, learn to be a coach, and this is what you do. And, and I'm like, are you crazy? Coaching is about feeling. You
Mhm.
have to be able to have that in your gut for the person you're talking to or about.
Mhm.
But,
S
that's a whole other conversation.
So, I guess where I'm stuck a little bit is knowing, and I think you did say we have to keep asking the question about what the feeling is that I'm feeling, whether it's I would almost always, when somebody says, "Are you feeling guilt?" I almost always say no, without even really thinking about it, because I don't know if I know what guilt feels like. really feels like. Let me put it that way.
Hold on a second. Okay, so here's a good exercise. We're going to use you as the guinea pig.
I knew you were going to
How?
get to this.
Well, there. Put it in front of me. Okay, let's solve this. Okay, so guilt. Answer this if you can. When you hear fire trucks in the distance, do you think that they're either coming for you or you're at fault that something is creating the fire department to show up?
No.
Okay. Do you ever feel responsible for things that really don't belong to you?
Yes.
Okay. So give us an example.
When someone, I have trouble doing it, but I'm going to put it this way. When someone hasn't done their job
Uh-huh.
or done the thing that they were tasked to do,
Uh-huh.
I can take that on as I didn't explain it well enough for you to know what you were supposed to do. I
So
mean,
you
that's
feel
classic.
right. Okay. So that is inappropriate. I call it inappropriate responsibility. Doesn't belong to you, but somehow you think it does belong to you. And now put you keep your hat on. This goes back to your mother.
Hmm.
All this stuff goes back to that early part of your life with your mother. Because in order for you to separate, you have to have boundaries. So if your mother had that behavior, well, you're going to mirror that. And for you, you don't know where you stop and something else starts, especially because you have children. You really feel guilty about stuff with your girls, right?
Actually, no, I can't say that.
Okay. So
I
when they
can't.
haven't done well in school in their early years, they did not do well, they didn't do something. Did you feel it was your fault that you didn't explain it well enough?
I did.
You never felt that.
Mm, no, this is, and I'm still letting that sink in. So I may come back to that and say, oh, yeah, I remember that one time. But right now, my first response is no. I felt it a lot in my marriage that I wasn't expressing what I needed. This was that. There's all these different things I wasn't getting was because I couldn't express it well. But I can't say it with the kids.
What about shame? How do you describe shame?
That's another one that I think I have difficulty describing it, feeling, put it that way. I got I don't know. I'm ashamed. I would think of it as I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed that my yard looks like it looks right now.
Uh-huh. So you don't feel guilty about the yard, but you feel shame about the yard. You think people are going to pass judgment on you because of your yard?
Not really. I mean, it's not, this isn't a strong one, but I just try to think of something that I might feel like, oh, my yard looks so bad. I'm going to go into it now. My yard looks so bad. This was a time before
Uh-huh.
because the yard people weren't coming. I was like, oh my gosh, we've got the worst looking yard in the neighborhood. This is ridiculous. I went and bought a lawnmower. So I guess that's not such a deep one, but that's, I don't know, is that guilt or shame? I think I felt more shame than guilt on that because
I don't I don't know because I don't think it warrants shame. Because usually shame is it starts when you are an infant. And again, it goes back to your mother and your dad is how they made you feel about yourself early on. And it has to do with the value of who you are. And if that's not made really clear, and mothers do that by setting boundaries, if that's not really clear, then it's all like the muddy waters, and you'll feel shame about things that have nothing to do with shame.
Hmm.
And the stuff in your marriage you probably have shame about.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it shame, but that may be the right word, but that's not the word I would go to.
What is the go-to word?
That's more guilt, honestly.
What's the difference between guilt and shame?
Good question.
Let me get the lawnmower out and see if I can go answer. Yeah.
I'm gonna say, um, guilt is something that I don't know. Some guilt is something that you maybe could have done something about. Shame is just more of a feeling. It's just, I don't know that I would put shame with something I could have done. I don't know. And I think that just contradicted what I just said about my yard. Um, hmm, see what I mean? I'm not sure how to, I
And
don't
that's
know
okay.
those words.
That's okay. But what
Interesting.
you do is, I forget what game show this is, but you've seen where people do things on TV and they have a magnetic board and then the word has a magnet on the back and they put the thing on the board and stays up there so everyone in the audience can see it. What was that game called? I forget what it was called. But all I'm saying to you is, so what you do is now you have two pots on your stove. One is guilt and one is shame.
Hmm.
And you're going to pay attention to it going forward. You're going to have
Yes.
feelings about something and you're going to ask yourself, do I feel shame? Do I feel guilt? What is it that I feel? Maybe it's none of the
Yeah.
two. Maybe it's something different. But you pay attention to it because when you are ready and peel away enough of the onion, it'll come to you and you go, eureka, you're right. It's this.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
I can hear everybody out there going, yeah, yeah, yeah. What are you talking about? This is about money. What do those things have to do with money?
Well,
And
that's the whole point.
we could throw fear in there too.
Yeah. Hey, now the table of contents, we got shame, we got fear, we got anger. We
Yeah.
have isolation, depression, helplessness, addiction, chaos. We got a lot of things in this book that we've covered. But I lost your question. What did you just ask me? What's what?
What does shame and guilt have to do with money? What do all those emotions you mentioned, if you want to pick one, how do those affect? And then, but before we go there, we're going to take a break. So we're going to take our break and then we're going to come back and I'm actually going to change the subject a little bit and then we'll go
Okay.
forward with that. So,
Okay. Okay.
all right, cool. We took our break. So welcome back, everybody. I know we cut off on one question. I'm going to ask Pegi because this has been bugging me. Everything gets blamed on the mother.
Yeah.
All things we blame on our mother. And I hope nobody turned off the thing before get to this point because all the moms are out there. Oh my God, one more thing that's my fault. Talk about that a little bit.
You see, it's handed down because as much as I blame mothers for, I'm also the one out there championing that mothers don't get enough support. They don't get the respect they deserve. And that piled on top of being female is a huge schism in our society, in every society. It's not fair. Women got a raw deal, right? We have to deal with labor, with all the things that we have to deal with. We don't get nearly the respect that we deserve. So having said that, okay, so there's your mom. Your mom's creating stuff with you that makes you then manage or deal with certain things. But what happened to her? Well, so that's her mother. It's like a ball,
Hmm.
the opposite of Sisyphus. The ball's rolling down the hill
Hmm.
because I would bet that you did something with your girls that your mother would either disapprove of or your mother didn't really pay attention to, but you became a better mother
Hmm.
than your mother possibly was.
Hmm.
So I know it sounds harsh to blame it on the mother, but you sure as heck can't blame it on the father because those guys take off. They're not that interested. If they could get pregnant, they would have entered birth control from the moment you're born. Right? So that's what happens with mothers is that they get this raw deal. And the only way they can fix it, and this is the hardest thing for most people, is set boundaries. It's like I read this thing, it's like, wow, this is really smart. When I first started out, is that successful mothers, you don't have to be, there's no such thing as a perfect mother. There's the good enough mother.
Hmm.
Okay. And that good enough mother needs to learn the boundaries. For example, let's say she has daughters. She has to be the example of a woman that has multiple things that go on in her life. Let's say she has a job, she has maybe a husband, she's got kids, she's got a dog. She's got all these things that she has to juggle. Where's her time? You hear this all the time. Mothers don't have enough me time. Well,
Hmm.
that's a big mistake because their daughter observes all of that no me time and they're going to duplicate it.
Yeah.
No, you need to set the boundaries now with your kids and so that they don't grow up having different expectations. So it's really starts by people wanting to have the awareness. But it's circling all the way back to how does it deal with money. How you deal with money is no different than weight. It's no different than drugs. It's no different than anything else. Money is just a tool to express ourselves because I've had clients wealthy, and they act poor. They act like they check the prices. They shop at the 99-cent store. They have all of this access and their feelings inside say to them, you're not worthy. And if you're not worthy, you're going to go shop at the 99-cent store. That's not the case. Someone is worthy. They have the money. They have the wherewithal. Why can't they do it? Because they don't feel worthy.
So it sounds like you're saying that oftentimes, or it's possible that women are making enough money or have enough income to be able to do all the things they need to do,
Uh-huh.
but they don't necessarily see that.
They
They
don't
they
feel
have
entitled.
their
Right.
emotions are tied up. Go ahead and
Exactly. No, I was cutting you off, I guess.
their emotions are what are keeping them from seeing all the possibilities that they have.
Uh-huh. Because when you come from a position of not deserving, everything gets colored. Everything, whether it's you gain more weight or you buy certain clothes that you think you look at it, when someone is detached from themselves, a whole bunch of crazy stuff starts to go on. So the key is to build self-awareness. That's the only way you can get out of this.
Okay. And so I'm gonna go back a little bit. In the book, I was reading how many women, and this is what I've experienced, don't feel worthy, so don't negotiate high enough salaries or salaries that they should be getting for the job that they are doing compared to a man. And then I compared that when I was reading that part about how men can sometimes overinflate. In other words, say they have more qualifications and then get more money than a woman would do. Where does that come from? They overinflate themselves.
You're asking, why do men present themselves as being larger than life?
Why they sometimes do, yes. And
Okay.
how is that? Why do women not do that?
Well, first of all, it starts from the beginning of this conversation is women don't feel entitled.
Hmm.
You have to look back at the history. It originally was men were out earning a living, women were home taking care of the hearth with the children. Someone had to do it. A man's not going to stay home and do it. His job is to go out, bring in the deer. This is
Okay.
dinner. Okay. But that things have changed, things have evolved. So the discrepancy in pay was going on forever, that men make more money because supposedly that is what they need in the household. But then you have this whole army of women who are divorced, have kids, because they end up getting the kids,
Hmm.
right? They
Hmm.
don't get child support. Oh my God, that's a challenge. How does a mother do that? She's got to take a job at any pay level because she's got to bring home the bacon. And the men who make the decisions often over these salaries, they don't know. And frankly, they don't care. So I hope I answered your question.
And the
But
woman doesn't feel worthy, even though she needs it now. This is about my children. Doesn't feel that she is worth the income that she needs or should have
it's
doing the
not
same
always
job
that.
as.
What's great, let me cut you off. It's very political. So let's say she doesn't feel worthy. Well, that's a rung down on the ladder. That's not going to help her. So it could be she doesn't feel worthy, but she should do it anyway. Ah, okay. The fact you don't feel worthy is your business and no one else's business. You have the skill set. There's a great book that came out. Hold on one second. Let me stand up and get this for you. This book is called Lessons in Chemistry. I'm going to take this thing off for a second. I want to show it to you. Can you see this?
Okay. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yes.
Got
Yes.
it. This book, it was written about a woman who is this really smart woman and how she gets treated by men. And she's in a man's industry. She's works in a chemistry lab. But
Okay.
anyway, it's funny, it's charming, it's quirky. Yeah. So you definitely should read that. Do you like to read it casually? I
I
mean,
do.
yeah.
Yes, I do. Or often listen since I drive a lot. I audible books. Lessons in Chemistry. Who's the author?
Bonnie Garmus, Garmus. It might be on audio. I'm not sure.
Okay. So Lessons in Chemistry, and it's about a woman working in in a predominantly male
Yes. Industry. Yeah.
industry, often where most of us are, especially the higher income positions, attorneys, we're generally working in a field that has traditionally been dominated by men.
Hmm.
Okay. So we've talked a little bit about emotions. We've talked about, I don't know if we really tied it into let's talk about one emotion in particular and how it relates to money. Let's go with
Okay.
fear first.
Okay. When someone feels afraid, everything they have or feel is negotiable. The door is open. When someone is able to accept the fear or process through it, the door starts to close. So it's like, it's a classic example of the bully in the schoolyard. That's all
Uh-huh.
fear based. The person who's the bully, it comes from an environment where they're very fearful. Maybe they've gotten beaten, and a whole bunch of stuff goes in that household to enable that child to be so angry and so minimized that they come to the schoolyard and they're going to beat anybody up that they possibly can. And for what? Why? Why do these kids have to deal with all of that? But that fear piece comes from a lack of confidence, inner confidence. You have to be able to believe that you can manage something and deal with something as difficult as it's going to be. You have to believe you can manage it. And I'm a walking example of that even before I got sick, but especially now. It's like when I get into a like slightly panic mode about what my future might be, I
Mhm.
have to really, put on my Supergirl outfit and stand up there with hands on my hip and say, we're going to take care of this. Don't worry. We're going to take care of this. You got to believe you have the capacity to manage something.
And you brought it up, so I don't want people to skip by to think we're going to this. We're gonna address, what you just talked about, you
Yeah, yeah,
being sick.
yeah.
But I want to, before we go there, to talk about the fear. So, when you say you feel like you can't manage it when it comes to money, you feel like you don't know what it is, you think you're gonna lose it all, you don't know what to do. Is it all of those things? What
Yeah,
how is
the last time I was in therapy had to be, I don't know, 20, maybe 25 years ago. And I used to complain to my therapist when I'd see these women on the street with their carts and their dogs.
Mhm.
And she said to me, that image is such a constant with women. That is really the heart of it. By the time I left therapy 2 years after that, it's like I felt more grounded and more myself, more the identity that belonged to me. And I think that's part of the issue with fear is that we lose our sense of self. We don't think we can cope. We don't think we can manage. And especially true when you talk to women who are in these abusive relationships, man, you got to scratch your head and say, what the heck are you doing in this relationship? You deserve so little that it's okay for your husband to be withholding or to be abusive verbally or, God forbid, physically, but it happens all the time. So this fear starts to control everything. And again, who has control here? Well, it better be you. If you let fear take over, it's a disaster. So if you take the template of money over the fear and you can see how it proliferates, it's like, whoa, whoa. And when then people don't have clarity. So your son says, hey, your son is 15, he wants sneakers. And the sneakers he wants is $190. But meanwhile, you haven't paid your gas bill yet. So he's like, Ma, let's go to Target. Let's do blah, 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 blah." And unless the mother goes, wait a second, who pays $190 for sneakers? But if she is afraid of losing the affection of her son or he's going to have a fit, she'll give in to that.
Okay,
Does it
got it.
start to, does it start to make sense?
That does, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I was gonna go back to the fear of losing money. So many of us can save money great, but don't put our money out to work. And I mean, women have said, I'm afraid I'm gonna lose it.
Right.
And would it be helpful to look deeper into that fear, not just the fear of money, but what else are you afraid of? What other fears are there to help break through that one? Or is it more just deal with that one?
Well, they're all interrelated because people are complicated and yet
Yeah.
everything can be said in 3 words or less. So if someone has to put their money to work, then they need to start researching where to put it. What's the vehicle, literally, they can put it in? They had this, I don't know, every year, these bonds, I think they're called I bonds, become available. And I think they're $10,000. And the interest level of that particular bond gets fixed. I'm not sure if I'm getting this right. But when it comes due, you have all of that extra money, like $900,
Mhm.
right? In interest you gained over that $10,000 investment. So little stuff like that. Susie Orman's got, a relationship with a certain credit union. Investigate that for your savings. You've got programs that you encourage women to investigate, but they have to do it, not just talk about it. It's one thing to put your money where it doesn't really earn enough and it's an illusion. It's another thing to really make it work for you. And I think that's partly what you do, right?
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
It is about I often think we save our money and keep it in a air quote safe place because we're afraid we're going to lose it without realizing how it is diminishing over time just due to inflation if you don't have it in
Right,
something that's at least keeping up with inflation.
right.
And I don't think we always think that through. But
Well,
thank you on that one.
hold on 1 second. You see,
Yep.
I think part of that problem, the root of it is, again, not feeling worthy
Mm, I
because
was
people
going to go
complain.
there.
Yeah, people complain about it,
Yeah.
right? But they don't do it. They complain about
Mm.
whatever, but they don't then take the steps, and it's unhealthy.
So that's where you're talking about in your book, you talk about might be a trigger emotion, but there's always something deeper and just keep digging. 'Cause it might look like fear, but there's actually shame under that. There may be something under that.
Yeah,
And,
it's like your Russian dolls.
yeah,
Right, exactly.
in that pyramid model, you had abandonment was the bottom of all of it. Fear of
Yeah.
abandonment.
Oh, yeah. That is the core, that's for sure.
Yeah. So Peggy, I'm going to go back. You talked about being sick. What's going on? I know you're working through some things.
Well, I turned 75 this year,
Hmm.
and so I accidentally discovered that I had ovarian cancer 2 years ago. So that was a big deal. It's major surgery, chemotherapy, all of that. And I figured, "Phew, boy, I'm lucky." And
Yeah.
I went for an MRI for my hip, because I had no
Oh,
symptoms. That's the scary part of ovarian. There are no symptoms
there's no
until
symptoms.
it's
Yep.
too late.
Yep.
So look how lucky I was. And then when we agreed we would test my blood every month, which I did diligently. And then lo and behold, we find this thing on the lining of my stomach, and my cancer value jumped up 30 points, 60 points. It's like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. It's like, what did I do? Did I eat too much? Did I not stay on my food program? So yeah, that's where I am now. So they changed my chemistry, my chemical, whatever the thing, the chemotherapy.
Uh-huh.
And it's been hard. But one of the things that I do want to share with people, I know it may sound terrible, but it is what it is. When I got sick originally, everyone says, "Oh, go to the support group and go do this and show up for here." blah, blah, blah." And I said to myself, I can't do that. I mean, I always show up for anybody needs help. I'm always raising my hand. But this time I couldn't do it. My way of managing it was to deny it existed.
Hmm.
So it would be the opposite to go to a meeting and sit with other women who were struggling because they're not in denial. I was in denial. And I said, I have to do this for myself. So I didn't. I
Mhm.
didn't go to groups. I didn't do this. I really didn't talk about it very much except with my family. And that was fine. So I think everyone needs permission to kind of follow their sensibility or their heart and get permission. That's a big word for women because this ties into everything. Women need permission. Doesn't matter what it is. We always take a break and ask, kind of look around and go, "Oh, can I do this? Can I do this?" So,
So,
yeah, that's
and
what's
how are
happening.
you feeling?
I'm wiped out. I am exhausted. And it's not even working. I had my blood done last week. She said, "Well, it seems like your numbers have gone up." And that's like, that's not good. I thought the chemo's supposed to drive the numbers down.
Yeah.
Well, we'll do another scan and we will have another meeting, blah, 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 blah. And then I met this woman who runs the pharmacy of all things at Cedars. And she told me about this peculiar tea that someone turned her on to
Okay.
that brought her numbers down because she has cancer.
Okay.
And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So I went to the website. I spoke to the guy that runs it and I ordered a package, a starter kit. And my strategy is when I go in next week for my scan, if the numbers don't come down, I'm going on the T. And I know all these doctors and they don't want you doing stuff like that because they want the pure, right?
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, no,
I don't have
I'm not.
time for that. I don't
Yeah,
have time for
exactly.
that. I'm throwing
Exactly.
everything at this.
Exactly.
That's how I would be. I
Yeah.
sure would.
Yep. So the T thing, yeah. So I got that to look forward to. So between the fatigue and the foggy brain, I got to juggle that every day.
That's where,
But again, I'm grateful. I am so grateful.
but as I said, you look great. The reason Peggy's not on, we're not doing this one on video. Peggy didn't want to. So
Yeah.
that's why
Yeah.
we're doing it that
I
way.
gave myself permission.
She gave herself permission. And of course we are not doing that. So there is so much more, and we could
Uh-huh.
talk for a really long time. You guys, Peggy is going to do some sessions for me, so I'm going to get deeper and deeper into my deals. Yes, we all have stuff, right? We all
Yeah.
have stuff. How can people reach you, Peggy?
Well, they can go to my site, thefinancialwhisperer.com. They can send me a message,
Okay.
Peggy at thefinancialwhisperer.com,
Okay.
and they can buy the book or they can get the book for free. We made an audio of the book.
Okay.
So all they have to do is connect with me and I'll have my guy send it out to them. And yeah, they just have to give me their email address so I can
Okay.
start building my list again.
Okay.
Yeah, but because the more information people have, the better their life is.
Yes. And we're talking about all aspects of your life, everybody. We're not just
Exactly.
talking about the finances. Finances are huge. Once we started at the beginning, nobody ever wants to talk about money.
Right.
Um, but our emotions are tied to everything that we do. It is what we walk around is. Sometimes I feel like I'm one big emotion, even if I can't name it. Peggy's going to help me name them. Um, so get the book. It's never about the money, even when it is. Thefinancialwhisperer.com. And we're going to have these in the show notes because I know you're not sitting down writing stuff down while we're saying this. And then you can connect with Peggy, Pegi, did you say Peggy at financialwhisperer.com
Yes.
to get the audio version? So she'll get you that if you email her. Peggy, thank you very, very much for being on the show. I think we'll help a lot of people people who get this book and listen to this book are going to learn a lot about themselves. And maybe we can get this conversation about money going a little bigger, a little faster. And then the more we learn, the more we can be in the world and make it a better place because we're struggling right now in the world, it feels like.
It's struggle and it's going to get worse. Women have to come out of the shadows. I mean,
Yep.
this whole business with the the rape and all of that, that women need constant allowances and
Yep.
we have to help each other with that. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Help each other. Let's build that community.
Yeah.
Remember, you guys, check out Money with Mission Wealth Builders community too. I'd love to have you there. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Money with Mission. There are projects happening right now where you can have a great financial return while positively affecting the lives of others. To learn more about our opportunities, go to moneywithmission.com.